What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another week of the Reel Down. It's your host, Garrett, here. Jimmy is not going to be joining me this week, so another week with me running the ship. Hopefully, we don't crash it. Um, but as promised, we got a couple of guys that fished the KBF event on Lake Chickamauga this past weekend. It looks like they had a pretty awesome event. A lot of good fish caught, a lot of good limits put up there. So I'll go ahead and bring those guys on. Um, we'll start with Wyatt here.
What's going on,
Wyatt
guys?
Hammond, how's it going?
Doing all right.
Good, good. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Like, how'd you get started in your fishing career here and
So,
kayak
so I've,
fishing
I've
and
been
all
a
that?
I've been a bass fisherman for forever, for the longest time. I remember, being 3 and 4 years old fishing with my grandpa, and
Yeah,
catching bluegill off the dock just like everybody else.
yeah.
Then
That's a
that
solid way to
transition
start.
into yeah that transitioned into bass fishing and tournament bass fishing. When I was
Yeah,
15, 16, jumping into like the BFLs and stuff, having my mom like sign off on me, sign off the waivers on me, sending me off in some random guy's boat.
yeah.
And
That's
then
awesome.
eventually,
Not too many people I know fish BFLs at that young of an age as a co-angler.
you know, say, and then I ended up getting my own bass boat, and the kayak side of things, I actually had it for saltwater because
Okay.
I had a bass boat, I couldn't afford having both, so I
Yeah.
did a lot of kayaking for flounder and stuff like that in backwaters for
Like inshore type of stuff.
oh yeah, I
Yeah.
say love doing that. And over time, I started with like the little cheapest $200 kayak that you could
Yeah.
get, and then upgrade like a $350 kayak, and then a $450 kayak, and just kind of as it went on, going through that. And then about 3 or 4 years ago or so, the motor blew in my bass boat, and I was just like, it's so much money, in upkeep and gas, and putting
Yeah.
putting gas in a 36-gallon tank in the boat, and then putting the 30 gallons in the truck. It's just got
Yeah,
a
like
little
a
crazy.
new motor in one of those is gotta be close to like some of the higher
25
end.
grand,
Yeah.
25 grand, yeah, ish, yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's
I actually picked up a used Wilderness Attack 140 couple years ago, and I
nice.
rolled that bass fishing and saltwater, and I ended up, like, I was taking it offshore, catching big 40-inch redfish off of it. I trolled for kings from it and caught some giant kingfish from it,
Wow.
and started bass fishing with it. And then I kind of wanted to get back in the tournament scene, so I ended up selling the Wilderness. I hopped in the Old Town Big Water PDL and
Okay.
started fishing some local stuff around here. So I
Yeah.
started with like the monthly tournaments. So around here we have Central Carolina Kayak Fishing is the one closest to me, CCKF, and I started fishing with those guys in the monthlies.
Yeah.
And
Do you
I
know
got
Drew? Forgot what his last name is. My cousin. I should know it. Blair.
and I've
It's-
heard it. I've heard the name. I know the name. I
Yeah.
know. I know.
He fishes the Central Carolina group.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
So
some of their events.
I know the name. I probably run into him somewhere. So I
Yeah.
started fishing with those guys last year, and then this year, I wanted to jump into the KBF
Mhm.
bass. I haven't gotten into the Hobie ones yet, but I wanted to step it up a little bit and see what I can do with those. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how it's rolled, and
Well, it's working out. Sounds like it's
yeah,
going good for you so far.
yeah.
Um, well, let me bring Ryan on here and we'll give him a chance to talk about himself. Ryan, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Garen?
Awesome. Glad to have you on. So
Thanks
tell
for
me a
having
little
me.
bit about yourself and let me know how you got your start in kayak fishing and all that.
Well, I started in 2019 bass fishing, and
Okay.
I could give it prior to 2019. I could give a flying foo bar about greenfish.
Yeah.
Panfish of any kind. I'm just like, eh. I grew up walleye fishing with my dad
Okay.
on Lake Erie, so I grew up in a suburb of Cleveland, and we occasionally would get out with my uncles And I had an uncle that lived on the causeway by Cedar Point off of Lake Erie, and we get up there usually 2-3 times a year, do some walleye fishing. Really enjoyed it, and then started my career. Got out of pretty much all outdoor sports in 2007. I lost my dad, bought myself a walleye boat, and started doing walleye tournaments at that point. Had
Are
a
you
lot
putting
of
weights
fun
in
doing
fish
it.
and stuff like that?
Pardon?
So were you doing the whole weights in the fish and deal?
Oh yeah, right. I tell you what though, I couldn't figure it out. I mean, there's some sticks on Lake Erie. You know, you talk about big bags and bass, and it's the same
Yeah.
deal. You get out on Lake Erie and these tournaments we do in the spring in April, May, June, and there was a really big tournament called Hog Fest. It was $250 entry, but it was just regular Joes. You know, you had some semi-pro guys doing it, but mostly like, you know, people like us just want out, going out and having fun, get a crew of
Yeah.
4 and try and do your best. And the weather was usually terrible, you know, 4-footers, wind blowing 25 out of the east.
I can
And
imagine in the
guys would
spring.
still manage to turn out 50-pound bags, and it's out of 5 fish. And it's like, how in the world does that happen?
Massive.
Yeah, oh yeah, it was crazy. But fast forward, like I said, in 2019, I started kayaking a little bit. A friend of mine in Cleveland's like, yeah, you got to get a kayak. So I started with a Predator MX paddle, and we did some river stuff. And the first fish I ever caught from a kayak was a pike, which was kind of fun, on a whopper
Yeah.
plopper of all things. And
Yeah,
I was
that
kind of
sounds
hooked
like
at that point.
a easy way to get your hook. Get a hook
Yeah,
in
I
hand.
mean, you know, it wasn't a big one, but it was fun.
Yeah.
And then my first event, I found the local Buckeye Kayak Fishing Trail here in Ohio and did a online event. I think it was the Buckeye Blitz. I'll never forget it. I was keeping my boat up in the East-West Harbor, which is a very popular place for us to bass fish at this point. Do a lot of tournaments up there. And my neighbor, my boat neighbor, is like, you ever bass fish around here? I'm like, not really. He goes, dude, you got to try it. In the springtime, they're all around these, all the seawalls. You know, he catch a 3-pounder off a seawall like 7:30 in the morning. Everyone's still hung over from the night before. He's out there fishing. And in my first tournament, I fished my harbor and caught 5 in the first half hour, 45 minutes, something like that. I put them on the board backwards. Everyone was denied. So that was my first
tail
tournament.
Touching the fence and all that.
Yeah. Oh, it was, I mean, trying to keep them on the board. I'm like, how the F do guys do this? You know, I mean, because they're flopping around. It was just a mess. But I ended up getting a pedal drive. I went to the Predator PDL, which is a tank of a boat.
It is.
And then I did that for a couple years. 2019 was when I started doing the bigger events. You know, I did some BKFT stuff, but 2019 I went to the national championship for KBF.
Yeah.
And once I started learning about the online things, I was like, okay, this is a lot of fun. I spent a lot of time doing it when I could. Fishing mostly weekends. I don't do any night or weekday fishing. Don't have the time typically.
Yeah.
Then, you know, my friends were the guys who my circle of fishing buddies all have Hobies, and this was prior to the motor craze, and Torpedo was really starting to get popular. And I'm like, I went to a 403, and I'm like, this is the cat's meow. You know, this is something you can get around. You know, I mean, if you're paddling, what is your range? 3 miles, maybe 4 on a given day if you're really pushing it.
Yeah.
And this past event, and we'll get into it, I covered some serious water. Just looking for bass, looking for doing what Wyatt did, looking for schools, trying to find areas that would hold fish. And I skipped over the areas he was fishing too, which just still burns me, but that's another story.
That seems like that's how it always is on these type of events. Like he just finds that little tiny spot that's got it.
But I love it. You know, I love the camaraderie. I love the people. I love the people you meet that don't tournament fish. You know, the more I do it, the more people I meet that have only been into it a short while. And it's just, you know, it's one of those things. If you're a gear junkie, which you end up being a gear junkie in the sport just by happenstance, right? You start talking different baits and rods and line, and, you know, it's just fun for me.
Different attachments and different kinds of stuff. Yeah,
it's a rabbit hole that does not have an end at all.
Yeah, no, it doesn't at all, and it just keeps growing every year. It just keeps getting bigger. which is awesome. So it sounds like both of you guys had a little bit of time to practice for the event. Um, Ryan, do you want to go ahead and start on
Sure.
how did you approach your practice, and what were you looking for going into the event?
Well, my wife and I have been to, this is our third trip to Chickamauga. We've stayed in Dayton every time at a resort called Blue Water, and I've
Yeah.
only known the lake from Dayton north. I really never fished the south
Yeah.
for the most part until, let's see,
I
there was
like
a,
that northern end most of the time
it's
better.
different,
Yeah.
but yeah, every time I've gone to pre-fish it, all the places I've gone into are all choked out. It wasn't, I didn't feel like I had anything going.
Mhm.
And I had talked about this a little bit at the weigh-in, but we get down to Dayton and I found out my truck had overheated on the way down. We had some camper issues that were minor, but it were still issues I had to deal with. And then my dog died on Saturday or Friday night, the night we got there,
Dang,
in
man,
my
that's a
camper.
really shitty way to start an
Yeah,
event.
it was
Sorry
not
to hear
fun.
that.
So thank you. We had to deal with those personal issues first thing Saturday morning. I didn't get on the water until 1 o'clock, and my head was just not in the game. And my wife's like, let's just get out, clear your head. We'll just cruise around. So we cruised up north, and I covered about 10 miles, just cruising around, looking at different things. I cast my rod occasionally, but I was
Yeah.
mostly looking and towing her, to be honest, because she's in a paddle. So, we like
That's
to
awesome
cruise
that she's
together.
out there with you though.
Oh yeah, it was just fun. We work a lot, so we don't get a chance to catch up, like this, and
Yeah.
just BSing. I caught a few fish, nothing substantial, but I'm like, this just doesn't feel it. But what dawned on me at that point was I'm looking at the water differently. Normally, I'll go to a spot and I will beat it to a froth. I mean,
Yeah.
just kill it, and that's not what you do in tournament fishing.
Yeah.
So my week, starting Sunday, I went to a historical spot that I was familiar with. I fished it for about 2 hours. Felt like I had a pretty good idea what the fish wanted, what they were doing, how big the spot was. I'm like, I'm going to go exploring. And from Sunday until Saturday or until Friday, so I did about 10 miles on Saturday. I did 10 miles, 12 miles on the following Friday. But between then, I covered over 100 miles of water. I
Golly,
wish I
that's
could
a
have
lot of
recorded my trip because
that's
it was obscene. I mean, I went
put some
from
miles on that
northern
motor.
Dayton, Cottonport area, all the way down to Harrison, every major creek except for Hiwassee River, all the way up back north again.
Wow.
Just trying to find a consistent big bite. I mean, if you catch one here, you catch one there. That's not
Yeah.
consistent. And I know that doesn't win tournaments. So
Yeah.
I had my back pocket. I was comfortable with it. But I was looking elsewhere and I had a couple spots that produced, and I'm like, they're new, it's kind of a long run. Do I risk it, or do I go with what my knowledge has told me? And the biggest difference, and this is where I screwed up all my tournaments in years past, pre-fishing a couple days before, you wear them out.
Yeah.
And I didn't touch my spot. I went there once and I didn't touch it until I got back on Saturday morning. So that was how my pre-fishing started.
I mean, sounds like you covered a lot of ground and put in the hours to make it happen. So were you mostly looking offshore doing this,
No, I
or
would start close to the main river, go back into creeks or start in the creeks and come back out to the main lake.
try to kind of locate because this is a hard time of year to kind of dial them in for
I
the
was
most part.
looking everywhere for the structure I wanted to find, and it was far, as Wyatt probably knows, it was few and far between.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the lake is a lot compared to. So the last time we had an event that we covered on Chickamauga was the Bassmaster Kayak Series event, and that was in March. But so it's like 7 foot higher than what it was then.
Wow.
Fishing,
I know it was low, but I didn't know it was that low.
Yeah. It was super low for that event. I think it was like record lows, what a lot of people were saying. So Wyatt, how did you approach your pre-fishing, and what kind of stuff were you looking for?
So I came into it just knowing that I was going to fish offshore. live or die. It was going to be offshore. I was going to be fishing deeper than 12 feet.
That's not a bad approach on Chickamauga in June or any TVA.
So we got up here on Tuesday morning. We drove through the night. Got up at 1 a.m. Tuesday morning, loaded everything up, and my buddy Hunter Hernandez and I rolled out there, and we launched out of Chester Frost the first 2 days, and just went straight to the main river channel and hit the main river channel and just started going up.
Yeah,
and just started.
There's some good offshore stuff in that area. There's a lot of community holes there. They're community holes for a reason.
Yep. So we hit that main channel. We started going up, and every single day we would just cover tons of water. Like Ryan said, I covered every chunk of ledge from Soddy Daisy all the way down to Harrison Creek, and just if it dropped into 35, 40 feet of water, I was scanning it.
Wow.
And it turned out that like the best places that we would find were not out on the main channel yet. I don't think the fish had fully pushed out to the ledges. I think they were still at those bottlenecks, where the bottlenecks where they were just leaving those creek channels going to the ledges, because I never found
still kind of making their transition
to
those ledges. I don't know if they showed up a lot out there yet.
They might be out there. I never found them.
Yeah.
So we just poked around out there every day except Friday. Friday we went all the way we just went all the way up to the dam just to try and see what it looked like, just to completely throw off the area, just in case I could find something crazy different.
Yeah.
But from Tuesday, the very first the first ledge that we stopped on that had school and fish, it was just wide open. Just I broke out the 8XD, and I think my first cast out across one of those ledges, I caught a 4-pounder. Wow. And then threw a football jig out there and caught a couple 2s and 3s, and I was just like, this place is nuts.
Yeah.
So we just went on replicating that anywhere that we found a good. It had to have a couple turns, and stuff. It couldn't just go straight out and hit the channel. Mm-hmm. So if it kind of snaked into the channel and stuff like that, we found pretty good schools of fish there, and of course they were also pulling current the whole week. So it was helping stack the fish up. So I knew kind of like in the back of my mind that, yes, this is fantastic. Yes, I'm catching these fish where they're supposed to be while they're pulling current. But come Saturday, Sunday, they're probably not going to be pulling anything. And I need to.
That's the way it always goes. They cut it off right on the weekend.
Yep.
Screw everything up.
I need to find something where these fish are going to go to, where they're going to fan out to near the main channel. So we ended up with about 7 or 8 spots, and my best one was right outside the power plant. It was right out of the Sequoia, Sequoia Training Center. I'm not super familiar with this lake. I've been here like once many years ago fishing the FLW College Series, but that was just drive up for one day, fish, and go home. So
that area by that plant right there is a pretty popular area. There's a lot of money and a lot of big tournaments that are won in that area in June. Because that's kind of one of the biggest ledge community holes that exist.
I almost got run over out there a couple times.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's the area that who was it? It was KVD and Iconelli. I think they got in a fight, like a little.
Oh yeah,
tussle out there.
Right, I remember seeing the video.
Yeah, it's a community hole. Well, you're not part of the community. So, anyways, yeah. So that's a case in point why they're always out there, man.
Yeah. I did find a school south of there, a little bit more south of the power plant that a lot of people weren't really stopping on, and I found that. I think it was Thursday afternoon. I sat out there and just I'd thrown the football jig and caught a couple fish, and they weren't really seeming to bite it, but I could see a school of them sitting down there on my side scan, and they weren't swimming around or anything. They were literally hugging the bottom on the side scan. I'd gone across it once, and I'd seen a whole bunch of little specks down there that looked like rocks, and I'd gone back across it, and they were all gone. And I was like, I know those rocks didn't move away.
Yeah.
Like I
They
know
didn't
those
just
are
tumble down
fish.
the river. It could have been. I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of those fish too are so pressured, and they know like what sonar pings are, and
Yeah.
as soon as they feel that presence, they just kind of scatter and leave.
Yep. So I actually broke out a shaky head on that and started dragging it across that flat, and I ended up catching 7 in a row, 7 like 2 to 3 pounders in a row, just back to back to back to back to back casts. And I was like, I think I'm gonna start here in the tournament.
Yeah,
I can't believe you went that far with it. After 4, I would have been done and out of there.
yeah,
It's
a couple bites.
It's so hard. I'm just like, man, I know I need to leave these fish as I'm still casting.
Hey, I mean, it's an addiction. You can't stop yourself sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, you're there to fish. You're not just there to fish tournaments. That's what I say to myself when I do that.
Yeah. Might as well take advantage of it while it's happening.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, with that, you want to go ahead and start on how your day 1 went? I'll let Ryan go ahead and start if you want to.
It's up to you guys. Whatever you want to do.
Take it.
All right. So day 1, I went to the spot that I had felt comfortable with and started with a jackhammer. Got there early. Was surprised there wasn't really anybody where I was at the ramp. I saw a couple guys from a distance. Really wasn't concerned all that much, and I felt ready. I felt comfortable. I was relaxed. I have my coffee and my donuts every tournament, every time.
Got your routine dialed.
Oh yeah, it's just I didn't have a far commute, so I had a lot of time just to kind of sit and think and relax, watch the sunrise.
Yeah.
And I'm just anticipating 6 o'clock. When I see it come up on my graph, I have my rod in my hand, probably not unlike a lot of other tournament anglers. I've got it already released, ready to make the cast.
Yeah. With the alarm set or something.
Oh yeah. I mean, as soon as it clicks 6 o'clock, it's in the air. And as soon as it hits the water, I get a fish. That's the first time in my tournament history of 75 plus starts that I've caught a fish first cast like that.
First cast. Usually people say that's like a bad omen.
Right. That's what I've heard. So that was my first one. And then I get the fish in the boat, take the picture, 601, do my thing, get it back in the water. Second cast, boom, there's another fish. I'm like, okay, this has got to be a fluke, but just stay calm. Because my nerves are already starting crazy,
like a shad spawn or anything happening like first thing in the morning, or
there was
around something
dead
like that?
Quiet until 10 minutes until go time, and then the water started blowing up a little bit, so that got me kind of fired up. So I get that fish in, take a picture. It's not even 6:04 at this point, 6:05. Third cast, another fish, and this one's an 18. Now I'm like, I'm out of control. I don't know what to do with myself. There's a slight breeze. I'm drifting off my spot. I'm trying to find, because I didn't mark a waypoint because I'm too busy casting.
Yeah.
And get that fish taken care of, put away. Fourth cast, another fish. I'm like, this is impossible. This is not how this is supposed to go. This doesn't happen to me.
This does not happen.
Yeah, right. So I'm trying to enjoy it. Yeah, right. And at this point, I get the fish in the boat. I've got my rod back here. The rod slips in the water. The line's over here. The fish is trying to get out because these fish are aggressive on these river systems.
Yeah.
I get it taken care of and finally get settled down. And I think I must have drifted off my spot or just didn't hit my mark. Fifth cast, I missed or just was too quick. I'm bringing it back. Sixth cast, I caught my fish, fifth fish.
Yeah.
And so I had my limit at 6:14. And I'm like, do I upload? Do I not upload? And I know that I've had some issues in the area that I was at with fishing chaos and with my connection. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to keep fishing. It's hot. You don't screw around with uploading fish. I have plenty of time to do it. So I got back to it. The wind pretty much died and I switched from a chatterbait. I'm like, slow it down. And something I've always wanted to do since I've been down here is fish these big freaking worms. And I'm talking like 12, 14 inch
The
you know,
Magnum worms.
Yeah, I didn't use a coach whip. I didn't bust that one out, the 16-incher, but I was playing with 12s.
Yeah.
And just fishing them slow, you know, heavyweight. I was in 6-7 feet of water, you know, some grass here and there. And just because I was catching 15, 16 inchers, I caught that 18, the bite stopped. I caught a couple of 15s again. I'm like, I need to find something else to get bigger fish. So when I switched to the worm, it was the same deal. It wasn't every other cast, but the fishing picked up and they got bigger. You know, it went 18, 17 and 3/4.
There you go.
I caught I think the biggest one I got was a 20 and 3/4. I thought it was a 21. I thought I almost lost her. She jumped like 3 times. I got her to the side of the boat.
Made you nervous.
And bends the rod over. She goes down underneath, and I can't pull her back up. I'm just afraid to pull that the hook's going to come out of her mouth. So I try and guide it back up, and in one fell swoop, I get her in the net, get a picture, get it back in the water. It wasn't maybe 10 minutes later, I caught the 19. At that point, given the long week, losing the dog, thinking about that, I actually just put my head down and started crying. I've never been in that position before, man.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
I had emotional
93 1/4 inches by 10:30, you know, and that's the biggest bag I've ever had. Being in the lead, I knew that the likelihood of it holding was probably not great, but it was still pretty high up there.
Yeah.
And I didn't have another bite after that. Not one. 3.5 hours. And I covered I literally, it was like combing it with a comb. I was going in every possible way, turning sideways. And I tried to spread my grid out a little bit to see if they just moved away or if I pushed them myself, either with the ping or fishing them too hard or whatever, but it just stopped. And
that's what I was getting ready to say when you're talking about uploading your fish. Like I usually wait till if you're on something like that where it's like bite after bite or cat, like I'll usually wait and give it a minute. Like when it slows down, that's when I'll go to upload my stuff.
And it took me to upload my first 6 or 7 fish. It took me almost a half an hour. It was that slow.
Was it just the signal or was it like issues with the app?
No, it was signal, I think, because I only had 1 bar, 4G. I'm on Verizon network, and it's usually pretty decent. But I think part of the problem is these cameras have gotten so good. The resolution on the pictures are so high. It takes forever to upload. And I didn't mess
a picture or something.
It's like 25. It's huge. Yeah. You know? And thankfully, I made the mistake in the past where I have a super high resolution picture that's 100 megs. I'm glad I didn't have that turned on. Otherwise, I never would have got my fish uploaded.
Seriously.
I mean, the judges don't need to see that high resolution, right?
Yeah, they don't need to be able to count the scales on the side of the thing.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, it was a good day. It was a fun day. It was hotter than Hades, by 11 o'clock, which is probably also making things difficult, assuming that they likely moved offshore. I didn't even go hit my offshore spots that I had nearby. I just kind of hovered around this area because I kind of had it to myself. But I did have, and this may have hurt me, I was faced the shoreline, 200-300 yards from the shore, and I was just in my zone, and I didn't hear these guys roll in behind me on a boat. And it was 3 old men, nice guys, but they were within casting distance. It was like a long cast, but 75, 80, 90 feet. And they started chucking towards me, and I was kind of fanning out left, fanning out right. I'm like, I'm not going to bug these guys. We're all here to fish. They started catching 3-4 pounders and then caught a giant in front of me in the area that I wasn't really fishing. And it was killing me. And I wanted to tell them, please leave. But at this point, when the fishing finally quit for both of us, they left. And I'm like, well, now I know why. So we were chit-chatting for a minute. And I'm like, did you guys get a picture of that thing? Because it had to be a 22, 23 incher. I mean, it was huge.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, no, we'll just put him in the live well and take him back and release him when we get back to our dock. And I'm like, oh, my God. They're not tournament fishing. They're fun fishing, but they're taking the fish and sayonara.
Getting those glory shots or hero shots or whatever.
So I'm like, this is the way it goes. Make the best of what you got.
Yeah.
I try not to look at the leaderboard too much. At 1:00, I saw that I got passed. I thought maybe I'll hang on to second. Maybe I'll get if I got a kicker, it's hard to upgrade when you have 20, 19, 18, 18, and a 17 3/4 at that point.
Yeah.
Unless you're Wyatt, then it's a different story.
But I mean, they can happen on Chick though. You can run into a 20 pretty commonly. It seems like maybe not as much these days, but
I couldn't leave though, because I've left fish in years past or in tournaments past so many times to go find fish. It was like a ball and chain. I just couldn't leave the area because I'm like, if I just get one more good bite, that's it. I should have it locked up. But
yeah,
it wasn't my day. So
hey, I mean, you still had a good day. So that was day one for you, and you had 93 1/4 inches.
Mm-hmm.
You tied for second place, it looks like, and you got beat with the big bass.
Yeah, it was 22.5 or something he caught.
Yeah, it's Damien. 23 1/4.
23 1/4.
Yeah,
solid fish. And then in first place, let me get back to it here. You had Jackson Orr with 94 3/4 inches. Solid day. Wyatt, you're right behind him with 92 inches. So why don't you tell us about how your day went?
So I kind of set a goal in mind. I was like 90 inches is what I want. I was like 90 inches, and I'll feel comfortable. Just because I've been catching some big fish in practice, but I hadn't been catching like consistent 6, 6, 6, stuff like that. I've been catching threes.
Those bigs.
So I was like, if I can put 90 inches, I'll feel comfortable. And I probably started on that spot that Ike and Ellie and Kevin Van Dam were arguing about, because it was right straight in front of the power plant where I wanted to start. I wanted to leave my flat alone for a little bit because offshore fish first thing in the morning, they're usually not super helpful to me. They don't really set up very well until the sun gets up and stuff like that.
Well, it seems like that's typically like a late afternoon bite, like in
so I went
time.
Yeah. So I'd gone straight out there right in front of the power plant. I'd actually caught a 718 out there on Thursday, and I was like, I'm just gonna start there, grind it for a little bit, see if I can catch a big fish, and then I'll bounce around and see if I can add to it. And I had known that there was a big tournament going out.
I think we lost you a little bit there.
Yep. There you go. I'm back.
There you go.
There
yeah. So there's a big tournament going out of Chester Frost.
Chester
Is that
Frost,
where it's going on?
I'm sitting out there on the main channel on the
Yeah. One of the biggest community holes that they got. I think we lost you again. Well, he'll be back with us shortly, so it sounded like he was on right on the big community hole area that we've been talking about.
And I fished out of that area. There's a boat ramp not far from there. I fished twice, and I couldn't get a fish over 15 inches. I'm like, I'm not fishing this area. There was one school that I found I couldn't get him to bite for whatever reason. And it's funny because what he said he was fishing with, I was carrying, but I didn't throw it all that often because I wasn't comfortable throwing these big baits. But, the things you learn doing this sport post-tournament, you know what I mean?
Like you're saying, those big baits, like, I don't know, for whatever reason, those ledge fish, they just like the big baits.
Think about it. They're not going to fight over something small because there's too many fish, right?
Yeah.
If they're going to get them a snack, it's got to be worthwhile.
And I think supposedly most of the time they're feeding on big gizzard shad that are coming up over those ledges offshore. So they're kind of keyed in more on bigger stuff. So it seems like that's what the deal is. Well, we'll give Wyatt a second here to try to get back on, but you want to go ahead and start talking about how your day 2 went?
Sure. Feel free to cut me off.
Yeah.
But
right.
I mean, day two. So for some reason, the last tournament I fished, I had both of my rain gear kits with me, and I could only find the jackets of both for this tournament. I'm like, it ain't gonna rain. I kept watching the forecast. They were calling for thunderstorms or heavy rain on Sunday. I'm like, well, it's been 90 some degrees every day, or high 80s, high humidity.
Yeah.
It's a warm rain. It's not that big of a deal. So got to the ramp. There was nobody there. Again, I was ready to go. Threw on my heavier raincoat, shorts and flip flops. And as soon as I got in the boat, sitting on the dock, waiting for the 5:30, it started raining just a little bit. Then it picked up and picked up and picked up. And I'm like, well, it is what it is. But you're
Didn't
not
end up
doing
having
anything.
any thunderstorms or anything out
No,
that
I
way,
didn't see
did
any
it?
lightning. Didn't hear any thunder. It just was raining, and the wind was starting to blow pretty good.
Yeah.
So I went and circled my area really wide, like 1,000 feet, I think. I did a circle, and I'm looking for pockets of grass or edges that I didn't fish previously. So he's back.
Yeah. You get it figured out here?
I was starting to give away some secrets, so my internet shut off on me.
Yeah. It cut you off there. Well, Ryan was just talking about his day too a little bit, but we can go back if you want and give us a little bit of the secrets to give us some juice.
No, you're good, Ryan. Keep rolling.
Well, so by the time started, I was a minute and a half or 2 minutes late to my spot, but the wind was blowing from a different direction, so I hit it from a different way. It took me about 3 casts, and same deal, but it was 16s and 17s. The big fish just weren't biting. And while I love poor weather, most guys don't. I enjoy it because I figure out the bite. It seems like for me personally, whatever I decide to throw, they seem to be hitting. And one of the things I love throwing a lot is a swim bait. Mm-hmm. And I didn't get a bite on a swim bait the entire time I was there. Entire week.
So when you're talking swim bait, do you mean in like just a little
4.8 or
like
even a 5.8 Kitech?
Gotcha. Yeah.
On either
you
a
never know these
quarter
days when
ounce,
you say
3/8
swim bait
ounce.
because with the
Yeah, I
whole
know.
glide bait craze and they're all the big mega bass baits and
not quite that big of stuff, but bigger than I'm used to throwing. But just their aggression that they hit it with, I was hoping to get a bite on that, and especially in the rain. But for whatever reason, they wanted nothing to do with it. So I went back to fishing my big worm again. I had a couple different flavors. I threw what was it? I was throwing a Straight King Rage Tail Thumper, which is pretty good size. And I switched to the Anaconda, which is ridiculous looking. And I was like, this is like a novelty you find at a gas station on the way to a trip somewhere, not something you're going to actually use.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, man, my 20-incher came off that. And I'm like, okay, I got plenty of these. So I kept trying to mess with them. I ended up catching a couple of 15s off of it. I upgraded to 16 with a 17. And the bite again shut down when the wind stopped. It ended up picking back up later in the afternoon. But again, I think my last bite was probably 11:15, 11:30. And I even left the area, going to a couple other places. I made one small upgrade, 1/4-inch upgrade.
Yeah.
And that was it. I mean, it was 89 inches, which is solid. It's my best. Those are my best 2 bags ever. And it's my best 2-day combined since I've been doing this.
It's awesome.
182 and a quarter over 2 days. I mean, I couldn't be happier with the fishing. So
yeah,
I mean, you had a good time. So at that 11 o'clock mark, were you like, man, I gotta go upgrade, or were you trying to? Did you end up abandoning that area? Or?
Oh yeah, I completely left. I went down. Well, I went south. I always forget which way the river flows down there, but I went south, well away from my spot. We're fishing other areas. I was, again, the weather probably helped, but I was by myself. I went to go check a creek, and I thought about going to the back of it. I'm like, no. I was fishing around some piers and docks and stuff, some grass I haven't seen before. I didn't, my bait's never been because I didn't pre-fish any of this. It's, sometimes I hear stories that's when it happens, right? They go to a spot they didn't hit and they magically get that last kicker.
Yeah.
But I couldn't find anything, and I wanted to give myself a good half hour to just destroy whatever was left of my postage stamp of a fishing spot.
Yeah.
And that's what I did until,
Burn it down.
I burned it down to the very last second. At 3:00, as my line's going through the air, I'm like, I was exhausted at that point.
Yeah.
I gave it
you've
everything
been
I
fishing
could.
like a week straight or something at that point.
Oh yeah, 4:00 is getting up at 4:30 every morning.
Yeah, that's a lot of work. It'll wear on you.
Knowing that I had an 8.5, 9-hour drive home post tournament on Sunday, that was.
Yeah.
I was trying not to think about that yet, but
that's even rougher.
And they shut down the numbers, except for I think they left the Dakota Lithium Double Up open for a short while after, but then they shut everything down but big bass. So I didn't know where I stood. I expected fish to be uploaded, for guys to, get that last hour kicker, which if it was me running tournaments, I'd say the last fish has to be uploaded by 3:00. That's just me. But I get it. People are far away from cell coverage and they want to get their stuff uploaded. So I completely understand that's the way it works. Every tournament I fish is the same way. So
did he let you know pretty quick whether or not you were in?
No, I had no idea.
No.
In fact, I didn't even know my third stuck because they shut the results down for everything.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So I had confidence, but again, knowing what I know about Chick and knowing about some of the big fish that were caught, including the ones I caught, a couple 21s, but
yeah,
I expected there to be some giants given the nature of the water we fish in. So it was fun.
It happens. I mean, they're definitely out there. Well, Wyatt, if you're back with us, you want to try and go with your day one, go over your day one and see it. Let us know how that went.
Yeah. So like I was saying, I started right there at the power plant, just on the flats right there.
Yeah.
And just where I guess an old creek channel or something dropped into the main channel. And I sat there and I was like, hopefully I'm going to catch a big fish, and then I'll go try and poke around and fill out the rest of it after that. And knowing that tournament was coming out of Chester Frost, I was sitting there waiting, like, please don't let him blast off early and just park right in front of me and start catching fish while I'm still have 10 minutes left to go.
Yeah.
But luckily, I guess
they'd run over you and stuff. I've seen those guys just fly out of there.
I was like, I'm gonna have to sit here and like just pretend that I'm casting so no one just comes and parks right in front of me.
Yeah.
And it was like six right at 6:00 is like just standing in the middle of the road of the Daytona 500, just bass boats just going all over the place. And by like 6:10, I was looking at my depth finder, and every single spot that I could see, I was like, every waypoint that I had marked, I was like, there's a boat on that one, there's a boat on that one, there's a boat on that one, there's a boat over there, there's a boat over there, and I'm like, I am stuck. I am stuck here. So I was actually throwing a thumper worm, same as Ryan. I was throwing a big 10-inch plum thumper worm out there, and I think it was like 6:16. I hooked like a 16, 17-incher, jumped him off literally right at the boat, kept on casting, hooked another one, lost that one right at the boat, and I was like, just wheels falling off. I was like, wheels are falling off in my head.
The opposite start that Ryan had.
Yep. So eventually, I think it was like 6:45. I ended up landing like a 16.25. Finally landed a 16.25, and then fished there for another 45 minutes and caught a 13.75 on a crankbait. And it's probably 8:00 or so, and I'm still looking around. I'm like, every single one of my spots has a boat sitting on it. Like, I am stuck on this spot, not catching fish, and I can't go anywhere. Yeah. So I think it was about 11
the previous
o'clock.
Weekend, Jimmy and I went out to Pickwick, and there was like 40 boats on every ledge spot there and they were out there before sunrise, an hour before light, and with all their lights and stuff on. I thought there were buoys or something when I first was out. I was like, there's a bunch of buoys sitting out there, and as soon as the sun came up, there was 40 boats scattered across the horizon, just like What do you want?
And I was afraid to move off too much because I was like, I had marked a couple of brush piles and stuff that I knew I could probably catch, some spots or something like that. Because I only had 2 fish at this point, and it's starting to get 10:30, 11 o'clock, and I'm like, what do I do?
Yeah.
So eventually the guy,
go to your plan Z at this point.
yeah, I'm gonna go start flipping docks or something like that.
Yeah.
But eventually the guy right behind me, he was sitting out off that Sequoia training place. He left, and I saw him get up on pad, and I immediately turned and just as fast as I could go straight down to that spot.
Yeah.
Just hoping that I was like, now the worst thing is if somebody pulls into that spot and pulls into the spot I just came from.
Now you're host, right?
Yeah. Now you're stuck.
So I went out there. I went across it. I marked a couple fish, nothing like a couple days earlier, because I knew no current or anything like that. Those fish probably scattered a little bit.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need to catch fish, so I grabbed a shaky head and I was like, I'm just gonna start dragging this thing. I couldn't hop it or anything. I couldn't bounce it. If I would just have to cast it out there and just drag.
Slow drag it. Yeah.
And I think I'd been doing that for about 10 minutes, and I hooked that 23 incher.
Oh, nice.
And it just started
on
jumping.
One cast, 10 minutes on one cast, or
about 2 or 3 minutes per cast. Just
that's a long time.
Count the rocks out there. I'm like, I know the fish are there. I saw them on side scan. I know the waypoint. I'm casting at the waypoint. I was like, they're there.
Leave it in front of their face long enough, they'll bite it.
Oh, but I caught that 23 incher, and I was it was on the shaky head. So I'm like, I got 10-pound test on here with a 10-pound braid, and of course it starts jumping, and I'm like, this fish is 10 pounds in front of me. It's flying out of the water, and I go to net it, and it bounces off the net and dives back down.
Oh no!
And I pull it up again, and it bounced off the net again, and I'm just like,
never getting this fish. Yeah.
Because last weekend I fished a tournament out here, and I jumped off a 7-pounder right in front of the boat, and I was like, it's going to happen again. I was like, I know it's going to happen again. And luckily it just stopped. It just stopped fighting after about 2 or 3 minutes. It literally stopped fighting and just swam straight. It just nosed straight up the top of the water and just laid on its side. And I got to scoop it up. And I was
worn out, I guess. I just gave up.
That or it killed itself. One of the two.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's like, I'm done. Screw it. He can have me.
You hit a wall a couple of times, it's gonna hurt.
Yeah. I was just trying to karate chop him with the net. But I threw that fish in the deck, and I was just sat there shaking, and I was like, I have to weigh this thing. I didn't even throw it on the measuring board. I weighed it. It came out like 751.
Nice.
And I was like, that's the biggest fish I've caught all week. And I'm sitting there shaking, trying to put it on the board. And I'm like, I got to get the net under the board to make sure this thing doesn't fall off. And I got some good pictures of that and got all that submitted. And I was like, I know I've got big fish. And I see the 23-25 submitted. And I was like,
dang it.
A quarter of an inch. I mean, what's going to pass at 23? Really?
Yeah.
23 and a quarter.
Yep. 23
I think
and a quarter.
that happened a few years ago out there. The Brad Golden and his dad, I forgot his first name. Brad and Terry Golden. His dad caught a 24 and a half, or no, Brad, the son, caught a 24 and a half. And then he was like, yeah, I got big fish. I'm going to win it. And then like maybe 5 minutes later, I guess his dad caught a 24 and 3/4 right next to him. Like, nope, I got it.
Sharks. Those aren't fish.
Yeah. So it happens out there. I mean, they're there. There's some good ones out there. But that's still awesome. That you had that.
So that gave me the confidence, because I was like that, because my head was spinning, because it was 11 o'clock. I've got 2 fish. I've lost some fish. I'm just like, I got nothing going right now. But
so was that your third fish of the day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got that one, and I was like, all right,
turn your day around right there.
Yeah, I was like, ship righted, we're good.
Yeah.
So I started drag the shaky head a little bit more. Couldn't get anything. I actually grabbed a football mop jig and started dragging that, and I caught a 20-incher doing that. It's probably about 20 minutes after I caught the 23. So I'm like, we're good. It's like everything's good. I've got my small fish is 13 3/4. I was like, I just got to get rid of that, and I'm golden.
Yeah.
And caught nothing after that until like 1:15. And I sat there for a good 2 hours and just nothing else. Like 1:15, I've got, I have a 13-incher. I need to get rid of this thing. I can't sit here anymore. So I started just bouncing brush piles that I had found. And I'd only marked drum and I guess giant crappie. I was like, I'm just going to start throwing shaky head at every brush pile I can find, because I promise you that's going to catch a fish on any lake that you ever go to. You throw a shaky head in a brush pile, you'll get bit.
Yeah.
And I managed to catch us like a 16 and a half.
101 right there. Yeah.
Like, managed to get a 16 and a half and get rid of that 13 3/4. And that put me back in the 4th place.
Nice.
So that's salvaged my day.
Well, it sounds like you made the right adjustments. Made it happen, dude. So you had 92 inches on day 1, including that almost big bass, 23-incher. That's an awesome day. It's been a while since
20-incher though, and you would have had over 100, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, you'd have been pushing it.
Yeah,
so you had 3/16 in your limit,
which you nearly did on Sunday.
Yeah.
So Sunday was a whole different ball game. So
well, let's start going into Sunday. Either of you guys want to? Well, Ryan's already kind of talked about his Sunday. You want to go over how yours went?
Well, Sunday was like, I knew it was pouring down rain at the boat ramp, and I was like, it's going to be good and it's going to be bad. It's going to be good because there's not going to be anyone out here. It's going to be bad because these fish, I've been fishing bright sun and no wind all week, and now I've got wind and pouring down rain, and I don't know what in the world these fish are going to do.
So what was the current doing? So you said it was running current all week, but what was it doing Saturday and Sunday?
Nothing.
Wow. Yeah, that's tough.
Nothing from what I can tell.
It's tough to fish those spots with no current.
Yeah, because I was sitting there just spinning around in a circle with every little breeze. I'm just sitting there, the kayaks just. So I mean, on Sunday I was like, there's nobody out here. There's not gonna be anybody out here. It's raining. I was like, I'm gonna make a run. I was gonna make It was about 2 miles to Skull Island from the boat ramp. The Skull Island, depth turns or ditch mouths, whatever those things are. Yeah, and I was like, I can be there. 2 miles. If I go 4 miles an hour, I'll get there right at lines in. So I rolled.
Did you have like 30 minutes before lines in? Was that the launch time?
5:30 launch.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So went up to that, sitting there right at 6 o'clock, and I didn't scan the flat. We found the fish on Wednesday, I believe, and I was like, I'm just gonna start chucking at them. Hopefully they're there. And I sat there for an hour and a half and chucked at them, and nothing.
They weren't there. Yes. Yeah.
They were not there at all. I was scanning them. I think I was seeing drum, but I was like, these drum are sitting perfectly right on the edge of this lip where those bass are supposed to be sitting.
Yeah.
So
that's the hard part too about the TVA. At least there's so many different types of species out on those ledges that you're like,
yeah.
It's hard to distinguish.
They don't set up the same, but they look the same. If they're not moving, they look the same.
Yeah.
So after about an hour and a half, I was like, I gotta leave. I'm gonna go back down to the flat where I caught the 23 yesterday, and I was like, I'm gonna just run across this thing one more time. And I ran across it on the way out with my side scan, and I just saw this giant pod of fish sitting right at the nose of that point. Because at this point, the wind was blowing like 8 or 10 miles an hour straight down the lake, and I guess it was pushing some current, pushing a little bit of water.
Yeah,
and those fish had stacked up on it.
Blowing like southeast? Like
southeast. And I was like, they have to be bass, because the wind's blowing straight on this thing. I was like, so I grabbed a crankbait and I chucked it across there, and first cast, I hooked one. I didn't know if it was a drum. I didn't know what it was, because that's all I've been seeing all morning, and it pulled off. and I chucked it back out there, and I ended up catching it was a double with a 20-incher and a 17.5-incher.
Gosh.
And I was like, cool, those are bass. Those are 100%
Yeah.
bass. And, it took me 5 minutes to get everything situated with 2 fish, take both pictures. It's raining. My camera's wet,
Yeah.
and get those fish back. And I rolled back up to that spot after I submitted those fish, and no more fish on the crankbait. Nothing for about 15 minutes. And I was like, I know they're here. You can't tell me I'm catching. I catch a double, and then they all just leave. There's no way.
Yeah.
So I started dragging it with the shaky head again, and picked up, like, I think I want to say 2 or 3 15.5-inchers, and then I caught a 20-incher on the shaky head. And it was just
There you go.
about every 5-10 minutes or so, I was catching a fish, dragging the shaky head. And after I filled out my limit with the shaky head, I was like, I'm putting it down. I'm not catching any more fish on it. I'm gonna throw the football mop jig for the rest of the day, because I wanted a little bit bigger bite. I was like, I want 18 pluses.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you caught your big fish the day before on a shaky head. So.
It's a little too like my heart can't take that. So.
Yeah.
It's like,
I get it.
The 16-pound test feels a little bit better. 16-pound test and a heavy action rod feels a little bit better in my hand than 10. So I just, I dragged that point, catching fish about every 10, 15 minutes after that on the mop jig, until I had a guy park on my spot, park on it.
Like, I mean, right, like literally park his boat right
30 feet in front of me. came down off pad right in front of me on the point that I was casting.
Wow.
And he looks over at me. He's like, "Oh, sorry, man," and then drives off. Like I was sitting there casting. I'm looking at the boat, and I'm like, "Man, he's coming right at me." And I start backpedaling, and he comes and just stops dead on him. It's like, dude, you got to be killing me.
Yeah.
Me right now. He's like, sorry, man. I didn't see you sitting there. I'm like, I got a light. I got a flag. I'm in the middle of the lake.
You're
only
the
thing out here.
Yeah.
And
I don't know.
I didn't catch any fish after that. After he came down on it, and then just got up on pad, sitting on top of those fish again. And I was like, that's cool. I was like, it's fine. I've got a limit. I was like, not gonna let that bother me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna take that as a sign. I was like, I need to leave.
It's time to move on.
Yep. Yeah. So I went down to the flat where I was catching them on day one, and pulled up on that. And then I was pulling up towards it, and I was probably about quarter mile away, and I see a boat just sitting there doing S's back and forth across it. And I'm like, oh God. I was like, here it goes. I was like, I came all this way. I came, this spot's 25 minutes away from the other one, and there's a boat just pulled in, parked on it. And he's actually
talking to somebody the other day about getting like a pair of binoculars or something, so that you can, before you make that long run to somewhere, you can kind of like look across the lake and be like, all right, yeah, maybe I shouldn't do that, go over there until it's too late.
Yep. Well, once I'm moving, it's already full send to that point.
Yeah.
Like he scanned across the whole thing and then just pulled up shallow and started fishing the bank. So I went over it, and I saw a couple fish sitting there, and I was like, cool, they're still here, and parked on it, started dragging the mop jig around. I caught another 20-incher off of it. And then I think I had 2 16s or something at that point. I'd stopped looking at the leaderboard. I was like, I'm just gonna fish and see what I can do. And I'll say about every, I want to say on that spot, it was about every 15 minutes or so I was catching decent fish, because they were I want to say the fish were coming out of the back of that pocket onto that flat. Yeah. So there were just more and more fish pulling in there.
What depth are you talking about when you're fishing?
Those were in 16, 18.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. So the first spot on Skull Island was like 18 to 20, because I was originally gonna throw a Spro DD, the Spro Little John DD, but it would kiss the bottom. It wouldn't like plow the bottom.
Yeah.
So
it's tough to get a crankbait to hit drag bottom at 18 feet or so.
Yeah. So
Because you
that's
just
why
don't have as much like resistance that like a bass boat or something.
yeah.
It
You
starts
start
pulling
pulling.
you to the bait instead of the bait coming to you with those big bills. You have to
Yeah.
start like long lining or something like
Start
that.
backpedaling. As soon as I cast, I start backpedaling a little bit.
Yeah. That's one way to do it. I think I had Ryder on or talked to him before, and he says he like turns his boat sideways,
Yeah, so
casts sideways.
that's normally how I fish. So because I can generally pick them out on side scan. If they're swimming, I can pick them out. So
Okay.
I'll pull up next to it and just cast 90 degrees because I can sit there and angle. I'll sit there and kind of like try and point the rod 90 degrees. And if I see a fish, I'm just like try and wing it straight 90. And that way it's not dragging the kayak as much. And if I get pulled a little bit forward, I can kind of back away.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, that's awesome. So you're fishing pretty much offshore, like offshore all day. And
yeah.
Just patiently waiting for those bites. Like you're confident that you're going to get those bites.
Yeah, I mean, I could see them on the side scan. I knew that they were there. They for the most part they were absolutely just smack down on the bottom, and they would just kind of show up as this tiny little white speck on the bottom. And I'm like, I know this is not slick bottom. I was like, I know there's a fish sitting there. And the drum were generally sitting like you could tell the drum because they were like a good foot or so off the bottom. You'd see a big mark, and then you see a little shadow behind it. But the bass were just sucked down to
the bottom.
Yeah.
So that mop jig sounds like the perfect bait in order to shaky head or something to drag right in front of their face. Just let it sit there. So that's awesome. So you had 98 and a quarter on day 2. Almost broke that 100 inch mark.
I was trying. I knew in my head I was close, and I was like, all I need is a 23. This is 23. I'll be good.
Yeah, I can have
just the 23.
23 from yesterday. You didn't leave it tied up somewhere. Go back and get it. But yeah, dang, the closest to you was Jody Queen with 94 and a quarter. So you had a 4-inch margin there on day 2. And I think we were talking before the show a little bit. If you had you didn't end up entering the double up, and if you had entered that, I think you said you would have had 190 inches for your 2-day total.
Yeah.
How much
Thanks,
did that
Wyatt.
cost?
No problem. Your next beer's on me.
Yeah. Yeah, I was shocked. I kept looking at that, and I heard about your numbers, and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. And I'm like,
yeah,
because when I sign up for these big tournaments, and I know people's circumstances are different, but I sign up for everything, because you just never know.
Yeah.
I got the early bird, and I made, because I like having the option of doing, if you do have 2 good days, you still could end up in a money situation, which could be fun,
And then they have pretty decent payouts for entering all 3 of them. Like if you do well, and just if you do well in 2 days, then you get all kinds of benefits from that.
Yep.
It's a gamble. It's a gamble. You're gambling.
That, for certain.
But your odds are better, I guess, if you're in everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But Ryan, you ended up taking home that win on the double up.
Yeah, that was nice. Now I could get a full set of new rain gear and hopefully not lose the bibs.
Yeah.
But now it's actually going to help me out.
In the rain.
Yeah, I wasn't planning on fishing the Trail Series Championship in Guntersville, but my wife and I were talking about it on the drive home, and now we're actually looking at places to stay down there, so we're going to head down.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Guntersville's a special place. It's fun.
Yeah.
Have you ever been there before? Or?
Yeah. Last year, this is 2023, 2022. We went down and fished the KBF. No, it was a Hobie event, I think. I forget which. KBF or Hobie did a Guntersville event in May. And we camped in the Scottsboro, I forget the name of the county, Jefferson County State Park. And I've got a toy hauler, and we backed up and dropped the tailgate, and we were literally on the water. I mean, my wife was just like, both of us, this is awesome. You know,
Yeah.
it was perfect. It was beautiful.
That's that same area you're talking about. My mom just recently got a camper and got like a extended stay or whatever spot in that same area, and we're talking about getting a camper now and
And that was the
parking
second
next to
time
her.
I fished it. The first time I fished it, I said I'd never go back. It was 2020 National Championship.
Oh yeah,
And I had a really good season. I was in like third or fourth place for the AOI points, which blew my mind because you had to have 3 good tournaments. The trail
Yeah.
series, I had a good tournament. I finished in like the top 30 or something, but because of that, the AOI points, I was going to end up in a 10 if I just had a decent Gunnersville.
yeah,
And I went back and looked at the numbers. I needed to be 23rd and or higher to get into, which is still difficult to do, but 23rd or higher to get into the 10 house.
wow,
And I didn't catch a fish. I fished just as hard down there for that tournament as I did here, but I fished a lot more versus scanning, looking
Yeah.
for specific cover. I didn't catch a fish over 16 inches in 8 days.
that was in October or something, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
The
it was
TVA in
miserable.
the fall is always got tricked me, like trying to figure that out.
I said, never again. Gunnersville's stupid. These people that fish this
Yeah.
lake, forget it. There's no giants here. I went home, tail between my legs. I said, never again. But when we went down there the second time, I figured some things out, and it's been a lot more fun since. Plus, it's just gorgeous down there.
Yeah, it's
GFO,
definitely
the tackle shop, is just phenomenal.
they got some good stuff. They got all the stuff there. It's a special place. So what do you guys got next for like event wise? Where do you plan on fishing next?
So next for me is I got a bunch of local stuff. So kayak fishing league, we bouncing around fishing with that.
Yeah.
Then I'll probably go back to Gunnersville. It kicked my ass pretty good there earlier this year at the Bassmaster tournament out there. I thought, what?
Yeah, it kicked my ass too. I got destroyed at that tournament.
I'm gonna stick an Apple eye tag on your boat, Wyatt.
What?
Yeah.
I'm gonna put an eye tag on your boat.
I've got one on there. Don't worry.
Yeah.
No, I want to follow you around. Is the point?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. On Gunnersville, I would stay the opposite end of the lake from me. Don't worry.
Yeah. Just wherever I'm at, just don't go there.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm doing a couple local events myself here. I think I'm gonna do one on Saturday with a group, no motors, so that's gonna be. I don't know if I'm gonna have my Hobie legs or not, but
yeah.
Then we have a couple good ones for our local BKFT club here in Ohio, and then Gunnersville in October.
It'll be a good time. That's the goal. October is a difficult time to figure out Gunnersville, though. I will say that. But it sounds like you guys got some experience down there.
I know what not to do. I definitely got that down.
Not
I mean, that's better than that's a start.
I got that in spades.
Yeah.
I mean, it was water elimination for me. You know, and what's funny is when I was talking to Wyatt at the weigh-in, you know, when he was telling me what he was throwing, I'm like, I've got that bait tied on, and I didn't catch a thing with the 8XD. I even bought some 10XDs too, and because I've never fished gear that big before. I mean, to me, that's like salmon fishing, right? I just
those are giant crankbaits.
Couldn't figure it out, and you're talking about how they pull. Good Lord!
Yeah,
I can't imagine doing that with a fish on it.
Yeah. Those things will literally pull your kayak around trying to fish those.
Did you change the hooks out, Wyatt, or did you just run them standard?
Oh no. So the Gamakatsu EWG, the standard ones, not the heavy wires or anything, just a regular Gamakatsu EWG. A 1 preferably, 1/0's perfect, but I was running 2s because every tackle shop was out of 1s. So I mean, the twos work fine. They're a pinch small, but they're sticky enough that they hold everything, and you don't really have to swing on them or anything.
Yeah, just kind of lean into them.
Yep. So I actually, my home lake down here is Sharon Harris. So big fish capital of North Carolina. That's where the guys are catching the 45, 50-pound bags a couple years ago. So like 8XD, 12, 8XD, 10XD, 10, 12-inch worm. That's what I'm going to have tied on every single day for the next like 5 months, like, let's see.
He's got some in front of him.
Yeah.
Like that stuff right there. I'm gonna be throwing that right there for the next couple months.
Man, you're definitely prepared for a ledge event. Basically, that's
get to truly use it out there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Man, you guys both had awesome events. I was hoping to make that event, but I had to get some stuff done at the house for our baby room we got coming up.
Nice, congrats!
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, and it's great having you guys on. We get to live vicariously through you guys for a minute. hear all your stories. But if you
shameless plug, I will have the everything on there on my YouTube channel.
Yeah, that's where I was going next. Is if you guys got any sponsors or anybody you want to thank for the event, or any kind of plugs you want to put in here, go ahead.
So I'll say, gotta thank Old Town. I don't know if I put quite as many miles as you on it, Ryan, but I absolutely burned it down. So my trip log for Sunday said 10 and a half miles and 3 hours and 46 minutes of moving time. So be it, back and forth or traveling around out there, absolutely burning that place down. I'll say, I covered probably as much water every single day that I was out there. I'll say hummingbirds, amazing. I can sit there and see. I could tell you whether those fish were 2 pounds or 3 pounds or big fish. Be casting at. And then, like I said, I'll have all these videos posted on my YouTube channel, Wham Fishing. I'm gonna be working. I was working on the practice video early this morning, and then I'll have day 1, and then I'll have day 2 as well. So
I'll be sure to throw a link to your channel in our description for the show.
I appreciate it.
Anybody listening can go down there and check it out. Ryan, you got anybody you want to thank for the event? Or
so I've been on the pro staff of Venom Lures since I started doing this. It was actually a company locally here in Ohio. Yeah. Great company. Just a shout out to Dustin and the whole team over there. I've been with them for a long time and love using their stuff. In fact, I caught my personal best, which I still haven't broke yet, at Chickamauga on one of their dream craws. So that bite just wasn't working for me, but I thank my wife. Those are basically the 2 big sponsors of what I do, and just love what I do, and it's a lot of fun. So
yeah, it's awesome that you guys get to travel together and go to these events and get to hang out and stuff.
I keep trying to get her I want to get a spare Hobie so I can get her out fishing too. I've taken her walleye fishing a few times.
That may be a hard sell, but
she loves the water as much as I do. So, I give it time.
Yeah. You just got to plant the seed and just keep watering it. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, thank you guys for coming on.
Nature, but I appreciate it. It's a lot of fun. Appreciate you having us on.
Yeah,
Wyatt, nice to see you again, and great job, dude.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Congrats.
So I guess next week we'll kind of be talking about the Hobie event on Cayuga coming up this weekend. I'm excited.
See, who was it? Who was it caught that like 9-pound smallmouth or something this up there?
Was that this year or last year? Someone caught an 8 something and 8 or something like that. And they
that's something I'm jealous. We have no smallmouth down here. I got to drive like 5 hours to get smallmouth.
Chickamauga has some big smallmouth in it. That would have been a good opportunity to catch a few
Caught
there.
2 13-inchers in practice.
Yeah.
I was so excited. I'm like, what the hell? It was
Generally,
big.
so it seems like it's kind of around the March through May. You can catch a lot of big smallmouth up by the dam, the Watts Bar Dam.
I
That
considered doing that, making that run just to go see.
Yeah.
But
They weren't up there.
Yeah.
I tried.
that bite usually dies like right around May, like the beginning of May, sometime in that range. But when it's on there, you can catch. I mean, we've covered a couple events this year. People catching 99 inches, 98 inches, all smallmouth up there.
Wow. It's like St. Clair, which I was dying to do this year, but didn't get a chance to. That's still on my to-do list.
Not quite the same build as those fish on St. Clair, but like longer. They're more long and lean smallmouth. But yeah, they're there.
You guys make your way to Ohio, look me up, man. I'd love to take you out. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I'd definitely be down. I want to go. I mean, I want to go do a whole kind of northern swing, I guess if you want to call it. Like, I want to fish in New York. I want to go to Erie and St. Clair, kind of do all the Great Lakes and stuff at some point.
Nice.
Be a fun time. I want to fish that harbor you're talking about, that East-West Harbor area.
We had, I don't know how much time we had. We had the highest scoring, I forget how many anglers, 77 anglers, something like 600 or 700 fish.
Wow.
It was absurd. We had 5 guys over 90 inches. To get to 21st place, you had to have 85.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, those numbers are kind of ridiculous.
It's never been that. We must have just timed it perfect.
Yeah.
Everybody caught. I mean, I don't think there was 2 or 3 people that had no fish, and everybody else had limits. I think out of the 77, over 50 had 5 fish limits.
Yeah. Pretty good fishing. Yeah.
It was absolutely off the hook. Lots of big fish caught. I thought I had a pretty good spot to myself. Turns out, it wasn't necessarily fishing the same baits, but the guy was 200, maybe 150 yards from me. And I saw where he was at. I just didn't fish that area because he would move away, then come back. And I thought about kind of moving up. And he's like, yeah, I saw you were fishing. As soon as you left, I caught a 19. I'm like, oh.
That sucks to hear.
That's how it goes,
Yeah.
But that's fishing. You learn. You'll learn each time out. So, but if either one of you ever want to go up there, let me know. It's a great place to camp if you can get in. It's got like a 6-month advance notice to do some camping up there. But there's little VRBOs and whatnot. But it's just a really neat place to fish. A lot of docks. There's pads. There's grass. It's just unique because it's a harbor.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it sounds like a good time, man. I definitely will have to hit you up if I'm in that area, or make a trip out there. It sounds like
same here. Sharon Harris.
Yeah,
it's about to get really, really good out there. It's about to be insane out there.
Yeah, I want to go.
Is that closer to the mountains, Wyatt, or is that
45-pound bags?
Is that south?
Raleigh, the central North Carolina.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep.
That's not that far because my stepdaughter and her husband live about 2 hours from Raleigh, Durham.
Yeah.
So,
there you go. Yeah.
Sounds like we got to make a trip down there.
Yeah. They're
you need to go. You need to go visit them.
Well, they're here now, so I'll have to talk to them after we get off here and say, "Hey, by the way, we're coming down."
This is the time of year where I know last year I got out there and I remember scanning across the point, and there were probably 100 to 150 fish sitting on this point, and I started catching them, and every single one of them was 4+. I sat there for hours, just like my thumbs were just raw and bleeding. My whole palm was raw and bleeding. I sat there for just hours catching 4-pounders.
You're taking that bass thumb to another level. It's like destroying your hands,
which is a problem these days. If you guys use computers that have the
Fingerprints.
fingerprint recognition. It doesn't
Yeah.
work if your hands are all tore up to shit.
Yeah. I think like remember whenever iPhone had the little thing that you had to use your thumb basically
Right.
to open it. Yeah, that started happening with my thumb on there. It like would never open my phone anymore because my thumbs were just destroyed. But now we got Face ID, so hopefully my face doesn't get messed up from fishing. So, anyways, also I'm gonna start closing down the show here. I appreciate you guys coming and hanging out with us for a little bit.
Man,
It's good having you on.
Appreciate it.
good to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yes, sir. I'm gonna put you guys in the background. I'm gonna talk about one or two other events that happened this past weekend, if I can get them pulled up here. Yeah, so we had that kayak fishing world championship that was going on at the same time on Center Hill Lake. First place in that was Cody Milton. So this one was weird. It was in centimeters.
Oh, yeah.
559 centimeters. 491 centimeters with Damian Tao.
Centimeters. Why do they
with,
use the metric system? This is America, man.
Yeah, I thought this was America. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, I was interested to see that, and I'm hoping
Wow.
to get some of those guys on maybe in the next week or two. So
Is that 2 days? 559?
3 days.
3 days. Okay. I was
Yeah.
about to say, good God. if that's 2 days, that's just 220 inches.
Yeah, no. I don't think Center Hill has the ability. Center Hill is one of the lakes that I fished for our club, and I don't think it has the ability to put out 220 inches. There's no way. Maybe in walleye or something like that out there. Yeah, they got some striper, but yeah, not that. And I guess so. Also in that, we had Team USA taking home the win there. So that was an interesting one. I'm hoping to get some of those guys on and talk about that because it's just something a little different. And there's a lot of countries that were in that. I guess I don't have it pulled up here. I think there was 10 or 12 different countries that had sent people to fish in this event, kind of from all over the world. So that was kind of cool.
And I know a couple of them were fishing the that mock tournament that's going on Fishing Chaos too, because I started seeing like 45-inch bass pop up on there.
Yeah.
they were coming in as inches.
Oh, and they were submitting them as centimeters or something. Got their units mixed up, sounds like. So yeah, that was another cool one. We also had so typically Jimmy has all the info for all the tournaments that happened this weekend, and I didn't get that from him. So I'm just kind of going off what I remember happening. I know we had a Tennessee Bass Nation on Douglas. I don't have the stuff pulled up for that one. I'll try to get this all put together for our next show. Have it go over those guys, all that stuff for those guys, and give that some recognition. But with that, I'm gonna sign off of here. Good having you guys on. Hopefully, we'll be back in October if end up doing good at that KBF.
Sounds good.
Yeah, man.
Y'all have a good night.
All right.
Yeah, we'll
Good
see
night.
you. Good night to everybody out there listening, or good morning because this will be posted tomorrow. So we'll see you there.
See ya.